Okay. It's not enough. I had a peak there, but overall I don't have enough viewership. Come on, if I can do this. But I can do this, right? Bet I can do this. I bet you anything I can do this. I just don't have the strength.
I see no reason to.
Hi, Newman Leary. Yeah, um, well, you don't, but I do, of course. I think it would be, I think it would be great. What'd you say, Newman Leary? Newman Leary. I don't know what you call it. Is that
Why?
like, well, because I want more money. Is it, that reminds me of South Park. Have you seen that? Like where Canada wants more money and they have a hunger strike to have so that other countries give them more money, and that they like all die from the hunger strike because they just because nobody gives them any money. So yeah. Anyway, anyway, uh, what do you want to look at? Do you want to discuss stuff? Do you want to have I already talked to you
That
about?
means nothing at all.
What do you mean that means nothing at all? That's the whole. That's the absurdity of the whole. It was pointing to the absurdity of like also just the absurdity of hunger strikes, and it was just sort of silly making fun of like Canada for no good reason, which they sort of do about any country anyway. Um, so anyway, do you want to discuss something? Do you want to beyond that? Because that's not. Oh, somebody's followed me actually. Uh-oh, these must be like fake follows. Oh yeah, these are fake follows. I have a bunch of fake follows, but that unfollow. Weird. Okay. Anyway, you know my the stuff I support, right? Like I'm not able to just sort of banter about sort of stuff like that. So I mean, if you're willing, if you want to me to tell you why you should give me your money, I'll just say that I would like it, right? But that obviously I'm not gonna go beyond that. Um,
But
right.
why not do it trough pure logical refutation?
Well, there. Well, I mean, okay, I could. It wouldn't be refutation. It would be I could. I could argue that my policies are the people who benefit. Okay, so the idea, of course, there was an actual reasoning. So my idea is that my policies would benefit people by far more than anybody else's policies. If you give me money, that gives me the power to then more opportunity to like advertise myself and to get more known, and maybe people, and maybe finally get people to implement my policies. So if you give me money, then maybe I can. That will help me implement policies that will benefit you and as well as everyone else. So this is obviously why you should give me your money. So that's the logical actual argumentation for it. Um, I mean, it's obvious. People basically stopped believing that there could be a sort of that there could be progress to humanity. You see, most people that are into politics, they're either conservatives who just want the world to stay like it was in the Middle Ages mostly, or they're like leftists who also, in their own way, want the world to stay like it was in the Middle Ages, right? It's all about like, you know, like going back to the good old, either to the good old days when like, the sort of right wingers is more the good old days when you could, you could oppress people and be violent and stuff, and the left wingers is more just back on when there wasn't, when there was like everybody was a homesteading and there wasn't any like free markets and stuff. So so it's still kind of that's this is the problem. People are regressing. They like literally are nostalgic for the Middle Ages, which is absurd. Um, so yeah, yeah. This is my point. Um, but you're gone, Newman. Newman, are you still here? I see that my viewer count has dropped. You know where
And
I
how
s-
that will happen?
okay. So yeah, how will that happen? Yeah, I don't know. This viewer count is just absurd. It doesn't tell me anything. So anyway, um, how will it happen? Well, if everybody gives me their money, then I can, I change people's minds, right? If they, it's not just they give me their money, it's that if they know me, then they'll realize that I'm right and that until that now everybody else was wrong. And once they do that, they will obey me, and then everything will be good, right? That's basically what how that will happen. Um, that's
But how can we be sure of that?
well, we can't be sure that will happen. We can be sure that it should happen. You can be sure that should happen because my policies are obviously beneficial. I finally got a plan to finally address the issues, that are besetting our society, right? The issues of like poverty, the issues of like war, of of unfairness, injustice, the issues of environmental problems, right? And the issue of people being just massive idiots, and as well as disease, as well as aging, all that we can solve that, and I know how to do it in a way that it will be, that will give the maximum well-being to everyone and the maximum fairness. It's actually very simple, and I just find it crazy that other people don't see it. Um, and I mean, I think I've seen your name before, right? So as a result of that, I think you you maybe, I don't know. I think I might have discussed stuff with you, but I don't really
And
remember.
the plan is,
The plan is, well, for the long-term plan is, see, I believe in this thing called the Gorth, okay, which is it's an artificial intelligence, which was created long ago by previous humanoid people, but not actual humans, and this, unfortunately, it's malicious. It's like a computer virus, but instead of being in a computer, it's out in the whole universe, and it basically it sort of affects people's minds, and it's trying to take over the entire universe, and it's already making people do all sorts of horrible things, and it's actually responsible for all the sort of idiocy of humans, the so-called human condition. It's sort of basically responsible for that, and so the reason you can't see it is because it's in this other sort of compartment of reality that I'm calling the Zeld, and so it got created in this thing, and it's not part of the material universe, but it can affect the material universe from outside, sort of, if you will. And so basically what we've got to do is got to destroy that. I don't know how to destroy it, but so first, for now, we just got to create a society that enables us to progress scientifically, technologically, a society that doesn't have war, and that doesn't risk destroying itself. And and so what we do is we create what I'm calling the universal society, right? We get rid of, I think the biggest threat to that is inequalities, both between individuals, and unfairness between individuals and between countries. So what you do is you get rid of countries already, because countries is fundamentally about separating people and treating people unfairly just based on their birth. So that is terrible. And the other issue is, well, in a market economy, people tend to have there tends to be huge gaps in income that are hugely unfair. And so that gets addressed through a basic income, and through an income cap and a wealth cap. So that's what I want. I want to create a universal society, get rid of countries, and you keep a market economy. I'm not in favor of socialism, or anarchism, or whatever. So you keep the system as it's now, but just one unified thing, and then you've got a basic income, so nobody like starves to death. Everybody just has a base, and then an income cap, so that you don't have like excessively rich people, and so everybody's just like middle class in a way, and a wealth cap, so again, that there's no excessively rich people, and then I've got more like specific policies, but basically that is the gist. That's the most important. That's really the most important. Um, and then the idea is that then you spread out across the universe, because I think the more people there are, the more we'll be stronger against the Gorth. And also the Gorth will probably, if we manage to create a good society, the Gorth will want to send other humanoids to kill us, and it might actually create like some killer humanoids. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's possible, but that is definitely a risk. So we also have to be more numerous, just to be stronger, to be able to fight off any potential enemies. Um, so then we will have to like then we send spread like people, or robots, programmed by us across the universe. um, so of course it depends really, if superluminal travel above light speed is possible, then we can actually end up presumably colonizing the whole universe, and I kind of have a hunch that it is possible, but I don't know for sure. And I mean, I don't know. I just like it. No, we have no idea. We do not know. Science does not know for now, but it, I like to think that it is. But if it isn't, then you still should spread as much as possible. Um, and and so the idea is that there would be uh, just a single global society. So even if you've got like quote colonies like elsewhere and stuff, there has to be just a unified thing. So you have to have a single set of laws. There's only one like legislative. There would be a democracy, but only one single legislative. Okay, and um, so and there'd be of course the constitution. Everybody would have to have the constitution. There would just be one universal legislative, but if there are colonies that are like more than, I don't know, like a year's, I've been thinking like 6 months travel away from like any other place, um then they can have separate laws, but they still have to retain the basic constitution and still not be independent states, right? They could have separate laws like US states have separate laws. So basically my idea is as long as travel times from one end of a galaxy to another um, are under 6 months, then or above 6 months, sorry, um, then each star system can have its own set of laws, but it's still not an independent state. So just be like a U.S. state is now. Okay, so it would have to just be like U.S. states are now, and and then and when I say travel, it's just information, right? But yeah, we know that. I mean, if it's the speed of light, it's 100,000 years, so it's a long time even for light to travel across the galaxy. And and then likewise again, if the travel between any two, the two furthest most points in the universe is over 6 months, then separate galaxies. If travel is fast within a galaxy, but between galaxies is still slow, then each galaxy can have its own laws, like US states have their own laws, but they're still subject to the general universal constitution. Um, so that's the idea. That's the idea there. And so um, presumably it should be pretty easy, to spread, because then it can really be exponential. So this is really what I want. I don't know if that is that clear. Are you still here again? I don't even know. You haven't commented anything. That
Science
just
is already advanced. To me, you're denying physicalicism by the fact that you think miscegenation is good.
what 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 the fuck are you talking about? Again, you're one of these regressive people who thinks in the Middle Ages. Okay, you think like in the Middle Ages. It's not even that I think miscegenation is good. Okay, I believe in transhumanism in forms of genetic engineering, not about sort of replacing humans with like robots and stuff, or like becoming sort of a machine or uploading your mind. I think that's crap. All I mean is genetic engineering to make humans better, right? To eliminate disease, to eliminate aging, to eliminate irrationality, violence, that kind of thing. Um, and yeah, so there wouldn't be, at that point, there shouldn't be, you shouldn't naturally have like you shouldn't have any kind of natural fecundation, right? You should always check before implanting, before having a baby. You should always check that the baby is correct, and if need be, you fix with targeted engineering. That basically what you do is you'd create. Everybody would be a designer baby, um, and everybody could just have high intelligence. And there wouldn't be such a thing as race anymore, right? Because precisely every individual would just be created again just individually, so there wouldn't be a sort of transmission of a lineage or anything like that. That's what makes the most sense. See, you're again you're thinking from the sort of regressive perspective. You're not all forward thinking. Okay, you've got this idea that humanity has basically stagnated at like pre 20th century levels, um, and basically that's not true. It hasn't, and you think that it's going to stagnate, and you're not seeing the huge potential that there is. um, and this is the problem with most people. They're not seeing the potential. um, so yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's not so much that it's good or bad as that it's irrelevant. It's
The
irrelevant.
prefrontal cortex has solved all behavioral problems. You need to first create a stable society before beginning to do anything. You're putting the cart before the horse.
Again, you're not understanding. See, my whole the prefrontal cortex has not. The problem is that the prefrontal cortex that doesn't mean anything. The prefrontal cortex has not solved all behavioral problems, since people still have behavioral problems. Obviously, people's prefrontal cortex is not good enough. It's not. functional enough. Okay. So yeah, you need to strengthen that. You need to make people more rational. Um, you need to make people more rational. And no, precisely, I'm not putting the cart before the horse. I said we create a stable society by doing the stuff I'm saying. You do create a stable society by getting rid of countries so there isn't this sort of instability caused by the conflicts between different countries, right? And you create stability by also eliminating the unfairness between individuals, right? You equalize to a large extent, not entirely, but you provide a basic income so there's no poor people. You provide an income cap so there's no rich people and a wealth cap. This is what you do to create a stable society. This is that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. This is how you do it. Okay, you see.
They have behavioral problems because their prefrontal cortex is undeveloped. It's basic science.
It's not undeveloped. It's underdeveloped, right? Not the same thing. It's not. It's not undeveloped. Um, Underdeveloped, yeah. And what I'm saying is you do and the reason it's underdeveloped is because of genetics, right? The genetics simply don't allow for the proper development of prefrontal cortex. So to allow for better development of the prefrontal cortex, you modify the genes of embryos so that they have a properly developed prefrontal cortex and so that you don't have behavioral problems like you do now. This is what I'm saying. But you can already create the right society. It'll already help. If you do what I'm saying, it'll already help stabilize society. So you've got on one hand you've got the policy, and then you've also got the genetic engineering. Those are two components, right? You've got the policy, which is like the stuff I've said. You create a universal society with basic income, income cap, wealth cap, um, and you create also um, a better individual then that will be able to better function in society and better help society, right? And you do that with a targeted genetic engineering, which of course for now we're not capable of, but soon we will be. I mean, for now we're at the very infancy of that field, right? Um, in fact, in China in 2018, they made a first designer baby where they actually CRISPRed one of its genes. Um, but yeah, so it's starting to become possible, but soon it'll be possible to really say, we want our baby to be, our the person we're creating to be with this qualities, and then you just do that, and this is really the solution. This is really absolutely the solution. So hopefully that makes sense, right?
You can't govern impulsive people. I don't see how you will do that if you deny basic science and want to destroy thousands of years of evolution.
Okay, so you're the one who's denying science here. You keep saying you can't govern impulsive people. You can govern impulsive people. You absolutely can, because they're not that impulsive and they also still understand reason. And you're the one who's denying science here. You're the one who's being anti-science. Okay, you're the one who's. What do you mean? I want to destroy? I don't see how we'll do that if you deny basic science and want to destroy thousands of years of evolution. Precisely, you're the one who doesn't want to use science. You're the one who wants to remain unscientific. Okay, you use science to make people better, to
Explain
improve
all
human.
non-Western countries.
Explain even Western countries. Western countries are super idiotic compared to, countries that would be if everybody was as rational as me. Okay, Western countries to me are still like Africa to me. Okay, for me, you're all the same. Okay, you're all savages. Okay, you're all savages. You're a savage, Newman Leary, and most Westerners are savages compared to what people should be and compared to, yeah, what I'm trying to do. But yeah, I agree. Non-Western countries are more savage. They're a bit more savage, but there's still it's a huge gap between Western countries and proper developed humans. Um, so this is exactly my point, is that for now people's genes are deficient. People's minds are deficient because of deficient genes. We've got to improve that. We've got to improve that, and I want to improve that, like I've said, through genetic engineering. That's the I mean, what do you want to do otherwise? Otherwise, you'll just have complete savage people that will just destroy the world, right? This is the problem. We've got just a bunch of savages that don't know that that don't know how to behave properly. This is exactly, I mean, I've said this.
And why these people would trust you?
Well, because they're not entirely irrational, right? They've got a modicum of rationality. You've got to appeal to that, and you've also got to appeal to their emotions as well. You got to make them, under just, basically give them a vision that is enticing. And I think that's what I have. So yeah, finally give people sort of a big picture goal that's more exciting than the typical sort of humdrum politics that people are usually experienced, that usually experience, right? This is what I'm saying. You see how I've actually presented a vision, right, to people, which isn't just sort of simple, kind of you know kind of, I don't know how to say, right, stultifying ideas, right, that typically get presented to most people when it comes to politics. I've got a vision, right? These universality, this actually making the universe great again, as is my slogan, right? I think this is I think this it's something cool, something that people can collectively decide to get together to join. I think people like that. People like being part of a big project, and for now, they're lacking that. They're lacking guidance. I want to provide guidance to people. You see, doesn't that make sense? And so why would they trust me?
If
Well,
people refuse to take vaccines, why do you think they will be okay with having their genes modified?
Well, it's not their genes necessarily, right? But yeah, obviously you need to give trust, right? You need to show. I mean, some kids already. It first it'll just be voluntary, right? Some parents will like modify their children's genes. We see that those children do just fine, and then when you see that those children do just fine, then everyone will have their, in any case, it's not their genes, it's not your genes that we're changing. It's new kids' genes that we're modifying. So it's not you, right? And so it makes sense that you can absolutely do that, right? You do it to make people better. It's not a nasty bad thing. It's to make people better. Um, and they people refuse to take vaccines because there are side effects to vaccines. There are adverse effects. Sometimes they can be damaging. They can even incur like lifelong damage, and sometimes they can be lethal. So it's understandable that they'd be worried, right? So what you need to do is just over time you get to show people that this is the way to go, right? That it very much is possible to modify somebody's genes, but it'll have to be done gradually. And I think definitely this is better. I mean, right now people sometimes are born with faulty genes and then they have lifelong problems. So even if the technology sometimes might have errors, it's still not going to be worse than the situation now, right? We already have this. It's just kind of rely on chance. You're kind of rolling the dice every time you have a kid. Um, with this, you'll finally be able to check if they're like problematic genes or not, and presumably at some point we'll get to the point where there's no mistakes anymore, and that there's no kid ever, there's no person ever made that has like genetic flaws. But obviously, we're not really there yet. And for now, I could very much imagine that people might end up actually having diseases if you tried to modify them too much right now. Um, but it's just like vaccines. You need to have real long-term data regarding the issues of vaccines. And once you have that, you can then you know give more confidence to the public, right? So this is what this is the idea. You increase the confidence like that. Um, does that make sense?
The problem is that it's a paradox. The process is not really transparent and there would always be skeptics who will question it, but you can't educate them because they are impulsive or anti-authoritarian.
Okay, but another thing you got to realize that some of them aren't going to be skeptics, right? And presumably the ones who aren't skeptics, they'll accept to have kids who have been modified. Those kids who will be modified then are going to be more rational, so they aren't going to be just sort of impulsively mistrustful, right? And meanwhile, these skeptics, these sort of denialist kind of people, they're just going to die, right, of old age, and they're going to be replaced by more and more people who are modified, until in the end there's just nothing but people who are modified. I mean, you see what I mean, right? I mean, over time there's going to be obviously a problem is that the skeptics will want to have kids, and those kids themselves will be quote skeptics and stuff. But as long as not all non-modified people see, the idea is that all modified people presumably won't be skeptic. Of course, there's only a certain percentage of non-modified. There's if we presume that the percentage of non-modified people who are quote skeptic is the same, then as there are more and more quote modified people, then there will be less and less skeptic people until they disappear over time. So that's kind of my idea about that. Hopefully that makes sense.
How do you know that? What if the rational choice is something we have not accounted for?
Well, then it's not really a rational choice. If we haven't accounted for it, then it's not a choice, right? We can only choose among the things that we are aware of, right? That's not if there's something that we don't know about yet, it's not a choice of ours. It only would become a choice once we actually become aware of it, but it certainly isn't a choice for now. So it certainly it's the most rational thing to do as far as we know. As far as we know. Of course, there might be things that we don't know, right? But as far as we know, this is the rational thing to do.
Well,
Um,
we are using our rational abilities which will be inferior to these that are genetically modified.
yeah, so maybe they can actually then say, they can maybe say if something else is more rational. But I'm pretty certain that like unlike you see, intelligence for me is unlimited. Like there's unlimited potential to intelligence. You can always be smarter, right? But I feel like rationality, there's kind of a limit. There's a ceiling. There's 0 rationality and there's 100 rationality, and when you're at 100, you can't get over that. And I think the most rational people that currently exist are already pretty close to that 100 ceiling. And so I don't really think there's going to be people that are more rational than the most rational people now. And of course, as I've said, I think I'm the most rational person. But my point is that uh, we can create beings which will be more rational, a lot more rational than the average person, but we can't create beings that are a lot more rational than me. So the point is that like I I basically know what we have to do, and we're not gonna see other people come up with better ideas than what I'm doing. This is my point. And again, this brings me back to why you should give me your money, because I'm already
How do you know that?
well, simply because it's it's actually hard to explain because it's a kind of intuitive rationality. But the point is, I can see in my thought processes that I think logically. I don't get swayed by irrational arguments, and I'm aware of my own like emotions that would tend to make me think irrationally, and I'm able to to keep them in check. I'm able to keep that irrationality in check. I notice the irrational tendencies that parts of my mind want to engage in, right? But I'm able to keep that in check. I'm aware of that, and I think empirically. I look at evidence and just ask myself, does the evidence indicate that things are like this or not? And then so yeah, it's obvious that I think rationally, and it's obvious that I think more rationally than anyone else. And I've said that it's why am I the most rational? Then that is because the most rational, see, for me, the fundamental rational principle is the utilitarian principle of the minimization of suffering and the maximization of well-being for everyone, right? That is the fundamental rational principle, okay? And that should be done also in a fair fashion, and with sort of a weighting towards more that skews towards wanting to eliminate extreme suffering. That's the most important, eliminating strong suffering. And then it's much less important to like give people like experiences of bliss and stuff. So that's my position. And it's not just my position, it's the rational position. So already I know that lots of people don't believe, the majority of people don't believe in that, but other people do. But then there's a logical conclusion from that is that if you believe in maximizing the well-being of everyone, then you should, you know, dedicate your life to doing that. You should dedicate your life to doing that. You should dedicate your life to improving the world and the universe for everyone. And the way to do that is through like political activism. And the obvious way to get yourself known is to go streaming on Twitch like I'm doing. I've been trying to go on various platforms, and I've gone on YouTube also. I've gone on, I've done a few TikTok things. The point is that Twitch is a pretty obvious like thing to do, and anybody who was as rational as me would be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. And the fact that nobody else is doing what I'm doing is clear evidence. I mean, other people are streaming politics on Twitch, but they're not promoting the ideas that I am. So anybody who was as rational as me would both have come up with the ideas that I have, and would then be promoting them in the way that I'm doing. And since there's nobody else that's doing that, we can know that I am in fact the most rational person on earth. So this is my argument for that. Hopefully that is clear. All right. For instance, nobody else is talking about the Gorth, right? Yeah, it's quite obvious. If you look at the empirical evidence, it's quite obvious that there is this thing called the Gorth. Because we know that there's evidence of people experiencing, quote, magical phenomena, like clairvoyance and telepathy and precognition. And precognition indicates to us that this thing is very intelligent, right?
If you look at the countries with least suffering, they practice eugenics and don't racially mix.
But I'm saying you should practice eugenics. I agree. Just not through breeding. That is totally inefficient. Artificial selection is just a completely barbaric way of practicing eugenics. Okay, and it's totally inefficient. It's cruel and inefficient. The way to do it is through genetic manipulation, right? Not through breeding. Breeding is stupid and it can only get you so far, right? Through breeding, like look, breeding has given us all the huge variety of races of dogs, for instance. But you'll notice that there's none of those races of dogs ever acquired the ability to fly, for instance. None of those races of dogs ever became a race of chickens, okay? Because selection is limited, okay? There's only so much you can do through breeding, right? But with genetic manipulation, you absolutely could. You could have a flying dog. You could have a flying dog if you wanted to. You see, this is my idea, and it's just much quicker also.
Eugenics might even mean less children, not necessarily to not breed.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean it might even mean less children, not necessarily to not breed? Again, you're thinking in terms of breeding versus not breeding versus that kind of thing. I'm saying don't do it through selection, okay? You shouldn't practice eugenics through artificial selection. You should practice it through genetic manipulation, all right? It's much more. I mean, it's the only thing that can properly just give you the results that you want. Selection, the problem with selection is that traits tend to kind of.
For an example, the non-Westerners have more than one children on average.
Yeah, but the Westerners also, well, it depends what you mean. Do you say that if you have each kid counts as a half kid? Is that what I mean? Because normally you have 2 kids, right, for population stability. Because you share. Each kid is shared with another person, right? You made a kid with another person, so as a result, you need 2 kids for population stability. But it's not even true. You look at the lowest birth rate. You know where it is? It's South Korea. The lowest birth rate is South Korea, the only country with birth rate under 1, not just below 2, which is what is required for population stability, but below 1. So yeah, I don't. It's not about Western or not Western. If you look
because they don't have non-Western immigrants.
South Korea is not Western. South Korea is not Western. Okay. You see what I mean? And if you look, there are plenty of also poorer countries that now have also actually gone down in birth rates. You'll notice Bangladesh. Bangladesh has now gone to a level of population stability. Bangladesh is now at 2 kids per person, which is just the level required for the population to stay stable. Indonesia is reaching that level. Okay. poor Muslim countries, right? Poor Muslim countries are reaching that level. So if poor Muslim countries can do it, I think anyone can. So this is the other thing, is that like you actually want these countries to do poorly, because then it gives you an excuse to shit on them, right? It gives you an excuse to berate
Because
them.
South Korea is beginning to develop.
It's not just beginning to develop, it's like more developed than most European countries at this point. It's pretty damn rich, okay? South Korea is among the richer countries there are.
They are mimicking the Western models.
Yeah, but again, don't see it, you shouldn't see it as a Western thing. It's a universal thing. It has nothing to do with traditional European culture. It has to do with universal culture. It's about people adopting universal values. And this is my point. We should create a universal society with everyone adopting the universal values, which were first developed
They are
by...
rich just like USA was rich the last century. It means nothing.
Oh, what do you mean it means nothing, though? No, the GDP per capita is pretty similar to the United States at this point. Okay. South Korea. So what's the median income? I can look at that. The average monthly income South. The problem is that we don't,
Because
because this
when
was
they
old.
fully industrialize, things change quickly.
Things change quickly. Yeah, but they do change quickly. But it's not about being European, okay? It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with okay, wait, here's median income. When was this? Oh, this was a Gallup. This is old stuff. This is old. I don't have South Korea here. This was South Korea. Oh, 2017. Look, South Korea is at the same level as Germany. See that? South Korea is at the level of Germany.
It does. They can't compete with Western professionals.
Look, South Korea, same level of Germany. They absolutely can compete with Western professionals. Again, it's not about race. It's absurd. Look at that. Okay, look at that. South Korea doing perfect, doing better than your Western professionals.
Because they are developing.
Yeah, of course. But the point is that it's not about race. It's about development. It's about development. Look, Taiwan and Singapore at the level of Germany and the UK. Right? This is what we're
Western
saying.
countries are not ravaged by immigrants.
Look, this is South Korea here. South Korea. What do you mean Western countries? But no
R
country.
asterisk.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Again, it doesn't mean anything. They're not ravaged by immigrants. Okay, they're absolutely not ravaged by immigrants, and the immigrants then adopt the universal values. Okay, you see what I mean? The immigrants are a problem, but they're a problem because of their stupid values. But to some extent, once they've
That
immigrated.
Western countries are not populated by majority Western people.
But that's not true. For now, they still are. They still are. Yeah, they are populated by European people. Okay, they are populated by European people, and
that's not true.
That's just wrong. How is that? What do you mean? They are populated. A majority. You go to these countries, it's obvious. What do you mean it's not true? Have you actually been to a quote Western country? A majority of people, when you say Western, you mean Western European. Majority of Western European countries are populated by Western European people. That is the way it is. And yeah, there's immigration, but the problem in any case is not so much race. Race is a little bit, but it's mostly the culture that the immigrants bring, which is not mostly determined
The
by
Paris syndrome is a very popular concept.
Yeah, Paris is not majority European at this point. That is true, but France still is. Okay, you're right. Paris is no longer majority Western European. That is true. London also could say. Okay, that is true. But and these cultures that they bring is very much a problem. They're a problem precisely because they're very oppressive, they're very irrational, and they're very anti they're very, very opposed to these universal principles that have been developed by Western Europeans. Okay, but the things that they can be taught, those principles, and also, of course, then through genetic engineering, like I've said, then we can actually improve everyone so that they'll also be just much more inclined genetically to believe in what is rational as opposed to what is irrational. Um, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yeah, no, we shouldn't have massive immigration anyway. But and the point is that these countries, you think that those countries would be doing better if it wasn't for immigration? No, because the birth rates are low and economies would stagnate also if there wasn't that immigration. So it's not actually, and that's the whole reason there's immigration, right?
Non-immigrant cities are less populated. It doesn't matter.
What do you mean? Of course, but there are a lot more non-immigrant cities. So overall, it's still the whole population is still majority European. And the economy is doing just fine. The economy is doing just fine. Okay, look, this is you're being silly. I'm not advocating for mass immigration for now. Um, like I said, we get rid of borders, yes, but we don't have mass immigration. Why? Because if you have a global basic income, then people will just stay in their home countries, right? And the economic levels will be equalized between places. So there's no reason for mass immigration at that point. So that's
Not
my.
really. You don't acknowledge older settlers.
No, I do acknowledge older settlers. I do. I'm thinking about. I'm not saying just the most recent immigrants. I'm talking. I mean, unless what do you mean? Like, of course, yeah. There was like settlers thousands of years ago. I mean, everyone is from Africa, right? Everyone's from Africa originally. So in that sense, yeah, all Europeans are actually Africans. Yep, you got me. I'm not acknowledging older settlers, and I wasn't acknowledging them. Well, now I am. Okay, you're right. You're right. Western Europe is entirely 100% populated by Africans. It's true.
Western physical features are going extinct, so how are you going to explain that?
They're not going extinct, okay? They're being slowly, becoming relatively less common, okay? As they're being replaced by other features. Like I said, you take care of that through genetic engineering. If you want Western features, you can just have a couple of completely jet black people from Congo, okay? With genetic engineering, they can just have their embryo made in vitro and then just have genetic manipulations to make them entirely like a European in all fashions, both mentally and in terms of appearance. You can just they can have a European kid through not even through like taking the genes of Europeans, but just taking their own genes, but then modifying all of their own genes to make them become European instead. You could do or whatever, right? Or you could do
It's
anything.
not
It's
just visual.
I know it's not just visual. I know it's not just visual, but the mental stuff is also it's also physical. It's physical. It's biologically programmed. You see, um, it's still physical. This is this is my point. Is that it's biological. It's biological. The mental stuff is biological. You can program it. So don't worry. Don't worry. Miscegenation is okay because you can still then, if you want to have more Europeans, you can just make them. Okay, you can just a couple of black people. You could just they could likewise.
Give me your money.
No, no, it's you that has to give me your money. I'm gonna save the universe, and you
There
need
would
to.
be no scientists to do that.
What do you mean there would be no scientists to do that? It's not like there are no scientists among like African and Asian people. Okay, there are plenty of scientists.
It's not how it works, Kappa.
No, it is how it works. You're gonna give me money, and then I'll be rich and famous, and I'll save the universe, and then you'll be thankful.
You give me your money and I build a Death Star.
No, but I don't want a Death Star. I don't want a Death Star.
I want it though.
Yeah, but you can't get it. You can't always get what you want. Um, yeah, no, I think what you need is what we need is not a Death Star. Definitely not a
Hot
Death Star.
Pocket.
Definitely not a Death Star. Okay. What we need, what we need is something else.
Academies are soaring from corruption since the Western features are less relevant.
again, you're just focusing on this shit, and you're not even you're denying science. Okay, why don't you actually? Why don't you think rationally? Why don't you just look at science and recognize that we can completely fix all these issues? Okay, you can completely fix all these issues in the way I've said so, and you're just completely ignoring it, and you're just acting. And the funny thing is, you complain. This is the very irony. Is you and people like you, the ones who complain the most about non-Western Europeans are the ones whose minds are most similar to the non-Western Europeans. Like to me, you are like exactly. I see in the exact same way that I see all these savages from Asia and Africa and stuff. Okay, you're the same because you're mentally like one of these really sort of primitive peoples. Okay,
Why?
you're a mentally primitive person. You're not thinking rationally. See, you're that this is the irony. The hugest irony is that all the people who complain, almost the vast majority of all these Europeans who complain about the non-Europeans, are the ones who actually are just like the non-Europeans, right? They think in the exact same ways, in the complete unscientific, irrational, conformist fashion. It's so ironic. It's so deliciously ironic, but of course it's just so frustrating at the same time. But yeah, yeah. You would be much more at home in in these non-Western countries actually, because they are precisely are have exactly the kind of
But
irrationality
when
that you are.
James Watson did, they stripped him from all achievements.
What? I mean, when James Watson did, they stripped him from all what? Again, you're not even responding to this. Okay. Um, you're not even getting it.
Intelligent people don't talk about it because they will lose everything.
Yeah, okay, it's true that there is a certain amount of taboo regarding the issues of difference in intelligence between sort of different racial groups. Luke Heaves too, thank you for following. I hope this isn't a fake thing. This is probably one of these fake things where then there's unfollow. Uh, Presumably this is where.
Trump 2024.
Oh no, oh god, why are you doing this? Wait, are you a real? Okay, you didn't create it today
Trump
at least.
2028 though Kappa.
Trump 2016, yay. Why do you follow me? Why'd you follow me? Okay, Trump is a moron.
At Corvo Bianconero person face palming light skin tone male sign.
This is absurd. Yeah, and
Biden is a buffoon.
yeah, he is a buffoon, but Trump is even a bigger buffoon. So I still voted for Biden. Um. So
He
yeah,
is mentally unstable for office.
look, okay, he's a racist hair sniffer. Okay, we agree on that. Okay, he is also just a sort of a political weather vane. He's sort of an establishment shill. Absolutely, absolutely. Um, but nonetheless, and of course now he's senescent and whatever. But nonetheless, he's done basically overall his policies.
Biden has dementia.
He's sort of in the early stages of it. Yeah, I agree. I don't care. I care about policies. I care about policies. I'd want to have direct democracy so you can directly vote on policies. Um, Unfortunately, some of the policies, overall, the policies that he's done are definitely better than Trump's. Trump's was about destroying the environment. Trump's
He
was
should
about
be in a nursing home.
yeah, but Trump destroyed the environment. He wanted basically the administration destroy the environment, helps as much as possible, try to destroy the environment, try to slow down economic development, tried to make everybody poor, tried to
Trump destroyed it?
yeah,
Kappa.
yeah. He tried to make people poorer, right, by slapping tariffs on everything, that which harms trade overall. It makes everyone poorer. The administration ended up, not helping fight discrimination against people for, for reasons that don't deserve being discriminated. Um, so yeah, like
Trump made the environment better.
no, Trump was single-handedly just pretty much everything he did was terrible. Okay, pretty much everything that Trump did was terrible. Um, He separated poor kids from their parents, and like there's still like 60 kids that they haven't managed to refine their families yet. What kind of horrible thing is that? And then he denied that he lost the election. Okay, and literally half of Republicans actually believe that in 2020. Okay, he actually denied, and he like said the election was stolen and that kind of crap. Um, and like in 2016, all the Republicans were complaining about how the Democrats were sort of saying that, oh, there was Russia and that wasn't the real election and stuff. But look at how the Republicans even went much further, right? Because like literally, literally, it was a lot further. Okay, so no, no, okay, no. Trump is a moron. Okay, Trump is a complete moron. The only reason people like Trump is because he's actually literally says out loud all the nasty stuff that people believe in. It's about just bad people showing their true colors. Trump basically, he's bad. He's like openly
So
bad,
if
and
you
people
were an
love that.
American president, how would you deal with China?
I don't want to be an American president. That's irrelevant, right? You know that I want to get rid of countries. So if I was an American president, I would be advocating for the universal society, right? I would be advocating to get rid of America and just implement the universal
Kappa.
society. You see, that is what we need to do. I don't believe that is my whole point. Is the number one thing about my policy is not
You would end
dealing.
up dead.
Maybe. But that's the whole problem, is precisely nationalism. Nationalism, which leads to violence. This is exactly, you illustrated it perfectly by saying that. Okay? Nationalism, which leads to violence, which leads then to societal decay and just the destruction of humanity. That is a problem. Nationalism is the number one problem to tackle. Okay? So you got to get rid of nationalism. You got to get rid of nationalism. So this is exactly what I'm saying. We've got to get
At
rid of
Corvo
nationalism.
by Conero, this guy Athena Thanel is a perfect example, and all the other people like Schumer, Pelosi, Biden, and Harris want to destroy our kids' futures, so Athena Thanel, please keep helping these libs destroy America.
Lol, that you put me in the
You're
same
too
category as those two.
ideological. In politics you have to understand human nature.
I do understand human nature. I absolutely understand human nature. And precisely that I understand that it's a huge problem. I understand that human nature, when if it's misguided, can lead to horrible destruction. So
And you
we
ignore
need
it?
to, no, quite the contrary. I want to fight it. Listen, no, it's absurd, right? This is simply absurd. This is absurd. I don't know why I have always nothing but idiots on my streams. See, the problem is I eliminate all the idiots and there's nobody left. But yeah, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. You're just massive idiots, all of you. You're massive idiots, all of you. But the funny thing is that I don't know why. I never get any. I hardly ever get any left people, and the reason is because then I tell them that like systemic racism isn't really a thing. I am not in favor of defunding the police. I'm not in favor of socialism, and so I say these things, and so then they don't like me because of that. So instead I get just a bunch of rorks, right? A bunch of total savages instead. This is absurd.
Interesting title.
Oh, hi, Darth Toast. Did you just arrive? Yeah, my point is that I want to. I mean, I'm the most rational person on Earth. I have the policies to help save the universe. And if you want to save the universe, which you'll enormously benefit from, then if you give me your money, then I will be able to do that. And then you will be rewarded back. So it's actually a very worthwhile investment to do that. This was my argumentation to the person I now banned, Newman Leary. I explained that to Newman Leary. And so Newman Leary is this weird person who thinks that like race is all like is a problem. Like he thinks that immigration from other countries because they're of bad races is like the problem, and like fails to realize that they're like rich countries in East Asia, for instance, because for him it's all about Western culture, quote. And I showed him, well, look, Eastern culture, quote, does actually quite well if you look at income in like the countries in East Asia that are doing well, you'll see that's actually pretty good, right? So, um, so yeah. Um, I don't know if you've got more things to say at this point or not. I've got.
A little off topic, I found out that people in China are more racist than people in America towards black people. I heard somebody say it offhand and then I looked it up.
Oh, did you see
And
the
it's true.
look?
Mind blowing.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this.
OMG flushed face.
In China, nobody batted an eye. See that would be in the United States, people would go nuts from that, right? But 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 in China, nobody even mentioned it. Like no, it was just like, yeah, this is normal.
What
So
just happened?
what do you mean? What do you mean? What just happened? You saw it, right? You got it. That was back in 2016. They did that. Isn't that cool? So yeah, of course. This is why the sort of thing, oh, there's systemic racism in the US is like, no. The United States is like the least racist country in the world. The United States is the least racist country in the world, and the disparities that you currently see between races is not a result of racism. It's not systemic racism, okay? It's
Time out.
much.
Did that commercial say that they washed the black off that dude and he turned into an Asian guy? Holy crap, my dude.
Yeah, yeah. That's the idea, right? That's the idea. They didn't say it, but basically that's what you're supposed to. That's what you're supposed to understand from it. Yeah. So this is what I'm saying. And that was just normal in China. Nobody batted an eye. They're just like, yeah. Um. So yeah, again, the systemic racism is not the issue. Systemic racism is not the issue. And this is what I was saying to all these other people who are now gone, all these right wingers who are gone. I told them that most lefty people don't actually even stay on my chat because I say that systemic racism in the US is not a problem. Racism is much more of a problem elsewhere. In the US, it really isn't a problem. I saw an interesting thing where there's this basically if you look at the IQ, you'll see that based on IQ, the outcomes are very similar. The outcomes are very similar between between races. Like if you take a person of every race of this, each race, and all the people of each race that are of one particular IQ level, um, you'll see that they're out, and they all come from a particular socioeconomic background, right? So you adjust for IQ and you adjust for socioeconomic background, then their outcome in terms of socioeconomic outcome is going to be almost identical. Okay, so this is a great example of how there actually is not systemic racism in the United States. Which is not to say there isn't systemic racism elsewhere, but there certainly isn't in the United States. Or there's a bit of individual race. Some people who are a bit racist or a bit prejudiced, and
100%.
what do you mean by 100%? Does that mean you agree with that 100%, or is that it's not to say that there aren't racist people. It's not to say that, you know, there aren't black people or Hispanic, mestizo people or Asian people that
I agree
sometimes.
with you 100% on those
Okay,
statements
great,
that you just made.
great. But yeah, yeah. It's not to say that there aren't some racist people. There have been, like, people that have like beaten up other people just for being of a certain race and stuff. So there is some of that, right? But I don't think systemic racism. What I can see is that there's unfortunately still relatively widespread racism among certain individuals, but it's not systemic racism. And overall, the outcomes for people actually end up being the same regardless of race once you've adjusted for IQ and once you've adjusted for initial socioeconomic background. So again, it's basically the instances of racism are not enough to prevent having fairness of outcome, just according to race. And there's still unfairness just because the market economy, the problems that the market ends up making certain people to be in a position to make lots of money without having to work harder for it. So because of that, some people just end up being just given loads of money without having to do anything. So that's the ironic thing, is that's actually it's a sort of it's welfare for the rich. It's just not the government that's doing it, but it's just massive donation of money, of unearned money to people who end up being rich precisely because they're in a position to earn that money. So that is the unfairness of the market system, and so I want to address that with basic income and an income cap and a wealth cap. So yeah, that's my position. Um, but yeah, like I said, the problem is that, like, I've had lots of lefty people that they have come onto my stream and they leave because I tell them that this systemic racism is nonsense, and they just don't want to believe it, basically. And they get angry at me. They say I'm racist for denying systemic racism. They say I'm like, they want to see racism even though there isn't. They just literally want to. It's like they want there to be racism somehow. So they get angry at me. That I've said also about the police violence. I've said, well, police go to where there's more crime. Black people commit more crime. There's a homicide rate by black people is 4 times higher than by non-black people in the United States. So obviously, police are going to be more prevalent in black neighborhoods, so there's going to be more police encounters. And in fact, well, the police encounters are not proportional to the homicide rates even. So if you adjust to homicide rates, black people actually get shot less than white people. Um, so you could almost make the opposite claim, is that white people are getting overshot by the police, and you could have like white lives matter demonstrations instead. I'm not advocating to do that, of course, but my point is that it's not it's not true that there's like targeting of black people. If black people get disproportionately shot by the police, it's because they are disproportionately engaging in criminal activity. So
They don't
that's that.
understand that they lose the fight.
Mm.
They're like, look, we're going to pay attention to these systematic racism. And I personally don't think it's a racism problem. I think it's an economic problem, an education problem, actual applied knowledge, and a self-esteem problem.
Yeah, but at this point, it isn't even a problem. If you look at Black Americans, okay, they're like, okay, so they're like 200 countries in the world, okay, and we've seen that if Black Americans were a country, they would be like the 25th richest country in the world, okay, so it'd still be in the top 15%, they'd be literally they're like literally at the 88th percentile or something, okay, so that's pretty good, okay. This is my idea that, like,
Top 25 is still pretty good.
yeah, it is still pretty good, and especially when you consider that it's way higher than the average worldwide. Um, the average, like, the average African American earns more than half what the average white American does, right? So it's less than a 2-to-1 ratio between white and black earnings. Meanwhile, the average black American, because so it's about what, $20,000 a year, something like that, when the average white person is like in the low 30,000s. It's that kind of a ballpark, okay? Um, Meanwhile, the average person, black person, in a country like Liberia earns only something like $200 a year. Okay, so 200 versus 20,000, right? So the average black person in America earns 100 times more than the average black person in Liberia. And of course, we have to remember that Liberia was founded by ex-American slaves, okay, the freed slaves, right? So that's what happens when you got just a country that's sort of, you know, just a bunch of, they'd say, oh, without the white oppression, they'd do much better. Well, actually, no. We've got here a country that is free now of white oppression. It's been so for well over 100 years, for over 150 years, and it's not doing well at all. It's actually the poorest country in Africa. So like it's and it's not to shit on those people, and it's not to say that like, oh, look, black people are just so like terrible at advancing economically. It's not that. But my point is that that's the disparity to focus on. Okay, is that 100-to-1 disparity between people in the USA and people in Liberia, people in poor African countries, not the 1.5-to-1 disparity between European Americans and African Americans.
I'm
Um,
going to give you some props. Great job doing all the research and having all this information. It seems like you really taking the time to analyze things. And then take a step back and go, what does that actually mean?
okay, well, thank you. I mean, at first I thought you're being ironic. I guess you're not. I presume you're not being ironic. I mean, it doesn't look like it because often people are ironic here. Um, because I'm not actually like showing you the information right now because always the problem is that it kind of takes a while for me to find this information and stuff, and so but I could show it to you pretty easily. I mean, it's just a Google search away, again, from refinding the information I found. So, and this is what we have to analyze, and this is why I'm saying, if you care about Black people, okay, and we know that the problem with the Black Lives Matter movement, right? It's not Black lives. It's only Black lives who get shot by white cops matter. They don't give actually, they don't even really care in practice about Black lives. Of course, they do care, but they don't realize that defunding the police is actually going to lead to more Black people getting shot, not shot by the police, but shot by other people, mostly other Black people, as
No, I'm
criminality
pretty chill
rises.
guy.
Mm.
To be honest with you, I will go ham on these leftists because they say extremely racist things. And then they say very extremely sexist things. And something inside of me just twitches.
That's why it's called
And
Twitch.
I can't not say something to them. Because I actually detest racism or sexism in any way.
Yeah, that's the weird thing is that this is why I say that modern leftists are just another type of conservative. They're actually in the name of like anti-racism, they're racist. In the name of anti-sexism, they're sexist. They're also bizarrely pro-religion, pro-nationalism. So yeah, and pro-jobism, pro-forcing people to have jobs, anti-technology, and like they like literally are medieval, just like conservatives. This is the weirdness. They're sort of meant to be progressive, but actually they don't realize it. But they're in the name of progressiveness, they're being conservatives. So yeah, I'm glad you can see that, Darth Totes. Most of them unfortunately cannot see that, and so yeah, yeah, and it's weird. And I've had pretty heated arguments with some of these leftists who literally, you know, they just couldn't understand what I was telling them. They just would not. They just failed to understand also how, like, yeah, this BLM thing does not actually help Black lives. If you think Black Lives Matter, and of course I think Black Lives Matter, but what actually has to be done is not defunding the police. What has to be done is doing what I'm saying to do. Okay, and but it's not because they're blacks. It's not about specifically Black lives. It's just human lives, and of course. And what you do is you give everyone a basic income because the market economy is inherently unfair. And so the only way to rectify that is to just ensure that nobody is poor. The things that, like they say, oh, you just gotta like get a job, just get a training or whatnot, but it's not actually how it works. inherently the problem is that if people get more training, then the employers will be more demanding, and they'll require more training, and so then it'll be just a rat race, right? It just becomes this race to the top of having more and more and more training, which is not useful, and it's not even necessarily training; it's just like qualifications, just stupid degrees that aren't even useful. And so if everybody was like super smart and super trained and everything, you'd still have some people who are unemployed, right? Because that is how the system works. The system is designed, the way it's designed leads to have some people be unemployed. That's just the way it works. So to deal with that, and also just recognizing that the economy doesn't actually need everyone to work, well, you just give a basic income. That way everybody can just have just basic minimum to survive. You can just have a basic home, a basic food and stuff, and if you want more, then you can work, right? Um, and you do that globally. You do that globally. You give, like I said, a basic income of
I don't
approximately.
mind a system that pays everyone. Just give everybody a little bit of help if they need it, like I personally am not against welfare. But I think that the amount should be enough to take care of things to live. But you just give them the right amount so they'll still go to work and make themselves better.
Exactly. This is why I say, and they just all the then that's the Rourkes, right? The right wingers, they just refuse to reason. They just refuse to recognize the validity of this. Completely they're just completely irrational. They're just complete beasts, that they just cannot think straight in any way. And I just tell them this. I tell them this over and over, and they just cannot understand it. They just literally, it feels like I'm talking to like a pig or something, like literally, you know. That's Hasanabi, that really successful streamer. He calls them hogs. I can understand why they literally they don't seem like to be any more rational
Oh,
than a
because they
hog.
were raised if you didn't work for it you don't deserve it.
Mm.
It literally is how they were raised and where they were raised at that point.
But the irony is that market economies don't reward you for your work. This is exactly what I tell them. They refuse to understand this. They refuse to understand that when you earn millions of dollars, you didn't actually work for it, right? You only worked for like the first $50,000 or so, right? And then because you didn't work more than the average person who earns $50,000 a year, and then all the extra millions you earned on top of that, you didn't work for it. You just got it. See, and this I tell them that, and so I say, okay, so you've got all these people who are the CEOs who earn tens of millions, these investors who earn, billions a year. Okay, they are they aren't working for it. They aren't working for it. So you have these people that have like millions a year that they aren't working for. Meanwhile, a basic income of 10,000 a year, it's a lot less unearned money per person, right? So, like, if you're complaining about unearned money, you should really be complaining about all the rich people who earn a huge amount of unearned money compared to someone on a basic income who only gets like 10,000 a year of unearned money, right? Versus some CEO who gets 10 million a year of unearned money, right? It's 1,000 times more. Um, and and of course these people who earn just this 10,000, that's the most crucial 10,000, right? It's the literally the 10,000 that gets you from 0 to 10,000, right? So it's the 10,000 that gets you from starving to death to actually having an acceptable life. So if you're complaining, if you're going to complain about wasteful, unfair, unearned money, then complain about all these rich people who earn way more than what they actually worked for. But they just refuse to understand this. They refuse to get the idea that the market does not reward you for your work. Actually, communism rewards you for your work. I don't support, like socialism, like, you know, kind of planned economies with like fixed salaries and stuff. Like that is rewarding you for work. I don't support it because I think the market is useful. Market is useful. It makes the economy work better. So I don't support socialism for that reason. But if you want a society that actually rewards people for their work, you should actually go more for socialism. The problem with socialism, of course, is that it can't really fire people because it operates on the principle of full employment. So then you'll have the problems that you have lazy people that don't really earn much, and so that is kind of an issue there. Um, like you have lazy people who keep on, or what I mean, lazy people who can afford to be lazy because they know they have a guaranteed employment. That's one of the issues with socialism, with the sort of typical Soviet socialism. Um, but yeah, and again, that it's so ironic. It's so ironic.
Oh,
it's
you're a
yeah.
post-capitalist. I think thinking face.
I'm not sure. Well, yeah, I guess I am. I believe that everybody, what I would want is for everybody to be on basic income. I want everybody to be on basic income, and just have robots do all the work. So in that sense, yeah, you'd have robots do all the work. You'd have them sort of calculate. You'd have them calculate the price. It basically still works sort of like a market economy. Like the robots would act as if they were sort of, sellers on in a market, but then we would just be consumers. We humans would be consumers, buying stuff from the seller robots, and then all the income that the robots earn from us would just get taxed 100% and distributed back to us humans in the form of basic income. That's the way to do it. Um, so yeah, I guess that would be post-capitalist, but not socialist. Um, so that's the way to. That's obviously the
That's
future.
what I am.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I hope for. Hell yeah, my dude. Now I fully understand where you're coming from. I really want post-capitalism too.
Basically, I think what I want seems to be pretty close to what the Star Trek universe is. Although I don't really even know Star Trek very well, but apparently that is sort of more or less what it corresponds to. It's obviously the way of the future. Why would you have people have to have a why would you make people be forced to have a job when literally all, necessary work can be just done by robots? Why wouldn't you just let people just pursue their hobbies instead, why can't we just let people not have a job and instead just do their hobbies? They can just spend time reading and doing sports and doing, whatever, going traveling, whatever, that kind of stuff. Why couldn't your life just be a vacation? That makes much more sense. Makes much more sense. And you can also, if you want to work, you can. It's just not going to be a job, right? If you feel the need to work, you absolutely can. You can go like gardening or something. I don't know if you want to actually feel like you're working. You just sweep your house, sweep my house. Like, come on, nobody's stopping you from working. This is also the other thing that's absurd. If they say, "Oh, work gives you meaning of life," no, what they're saying is that forcing people to work and paying them completely unfair salaries, that is what gives you the meaning of life, apparently. I don't see why. It just, to me, that's absurd. But yeah, for right wingers, the meaning of life is given by being forced to have a job and giving people completely unfair, typically unfair, um, compensation for that. Like, oh, how is that the meaning of life? Completely nuts. Completely nuts. Um, but yeah, but they're just complete idiots. Um, wait. I'm just looking. I'm just looking. How many times have I banned? Oh, I banned him once. Oh, this was my first ban of Corvo. Interesting. That's cool. Yeah, he needed to be banned. That way I've banned almost. Oh, have I ever banned you, Darth Totes? I can't remember. I'm looking. Oh yeah, I banned you once. What was that for? Oh, probably for the vegan thing, right? I think I banned you when I had a bunch of people. I like banned 6 people at once. When I said that we should forbid eating meat from animals. Once we can create meat from like artificially, just like grow steaks in a lab without it with just a steak on its own.
Oh, you're
That doesn't.
doing fine. I came in. I came at you sideways and I apologize.
I actually don't understand. I don't
AKA
understand.
I was wrong and that was wrong. And I formally apologize.
Okay, well, thank you. You don't even have to apologize. I mean, I don't apologize. um, I mean, I've had actually several people apologize, and I have not apologized because I basically I'm confident about what I'm doing, and like if I would apologize if I did something wrong, but the point is that for now I've had several people actually that it's funny, yeah, it's funny. I banned several people and then they come back and they apologize, and and I appreciated it, and I think you're kind of right, but it's true that I mean it kind of makes me feel a bit almost ashamed. I feel uneasy because I then, I'm not apologizing, so then that makes me sort of feel like I'm being sort of a bit shitty. But again, it's because I'm just rational. But yeah, I'm not even asking for apologies. I mean, all I'm asking is that people think rationally, and
Always
yeah,
apologize. It shows empathy. It's okay smiling face if you just say hey I was wrong, that means I'm learning something. You taught me to not judge people so quickly today.
Well, yeah, I don't necessarily. The problem is you shouldn't apologize if you didn't make a mistake. See, I think you see that because then that's wrong. Then basically, it's kind of it's just kind of seeking approval. It's I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It's like literally saying I did something wrong when I didn't do something wrong. And I'm saying this to you too, Darthos, right? Don't apologize if you didn't do something wrong. Just and even if you did something wrong, don't don't even necessarily show too much contrition, right? Because like the point is that if you did something wrong, fundamentally you couldn't have done otherwise. So it never really is your fault, right? So I think it's much better to just recognize that you did something wrong and say, okay, that was wrong, I screwed up, and okay, you can say sort of I apologize, but the fundamental idea is more I know that was wrong. I now in the future I will do things better. I think that is what I want. I don't even care about the apologies per se. What I want is I want people to improve. I want people to improve. It's not this sort of contest of like, you know, victimization and then apology and all that. Like, no, what matters is more about making people approve about, overcoming the past mistakes. Um, yeah, yeah. This is yeah. But so it was that thing about that artificial meat thing. Is that what I banned you for? I was basically just looking at the other people I just banned right now. Um, that was just my. Let's see. I'm just seeing if I banned all the people that I've. So Newman Leary, how many times I banned Newman Leary? I'm just looking. Oh yeah, one time. So that was the first ban. So that was important. I think it's good that I ban at least all the people once. I think it seems to actually make them kind of evolve in their mind somehow. I don't know. I somehow usually when I've banned people, then I unban them. They they sort of come out of it transformed. It's somehow I don't know. It's funny. Kind of it helps. It's sort of a cathartic experience somehow for people. I think in a very limited fashion, of course. But yeah, I feel that it's kind of useful. There's only one person that I know of that unfollowed me following a ban. And yeah, he said he does that systematically. And I think it's kind of silly. He was one of these. He's sort of a Christian. He's always saying,
It's
you
because
should love
most people
everyone like
never
Jesus.
unban.
Jesus loved you.
So people
Yeah.
reconsider your position.
Mm.
Or at least that's my opinion.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Um. And yeah, he's sort of one of these people who's he sort of his talk is all about like you should love people and sort of be all about like tolerance and stuff, but actually at the same time he's pretty in his own way he's kind of quite fickle, and like this is one of the ways you can actually see that is that he was like damn immediately unban and never come back, if you unfollow, I banned him just temporarily, but no, he was like immediately wham unfollow, never come back. And this was from the person who was most always talking about the importance of loving and forgiveness and Christ and stuff. And so you can really see the hypocrisy there. I wouldn't even say call it hypocrisy necessarily because I don't think he understands what that is. It's more like the inconsistency, but it's unintentional inconsistency. Yeah, which is kind of silly. But yeah. Um, let's see. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm glad that you're actually seeing now what I'm talking about. Presumably, so unfortunately, you weren't there. Um, I've been sort of thinking more about how I would actually create a sort of a constitution, what I would put in a constitution. And so what I would want for the constitution, so if you want, I can explain what I would put in the constitution of the Universal Society. It'd actually be pretty simple. There wouldn't be much. So the first idea is there is a constitution. Uh, you can't get rid of the constitution. You can't even amend the constitution. And this, and so then the second thing is that there is a universal society. And so all societies must be like basically all human and humanoid beings, so all beings of equivalent sort of intelligence as humans should belong to this universal society. They must belong to this universal society. It doesn't accept any sort of other separate existence. And this is the principle that the universal society is what allows everybody to have the most, to be treated the most fairly and have the most enjoyable existence. Basically, people say that it's like oppressive, it's authoritarian. No, I would say that the freedom of the culture, freedom of, to have like separate societies and, self-determination, all that is actually the oppression of the individual. Because what it'll amount to is people being oppressed by whatever irrational, um, you know, idiosyncratic cultural rules that they'll be subjected to. That's what happens if you have separate cultures. So what I want to do is instead get rid of separate cultures, have one universal, not even culture, just people doing things rationally based on universal principles and being part of this universal society. So that's kind of the so that's basically the fundamental principle. There is a universal society. You can't accept separate societies, and so that's one thing. Then, of course, the Constitution itself, which cannot be eliminated. Then the fundamental ethical principles that guide everything. So it's fundamentally the utilitarian principle of maximizing well-being for everyone and minimizing suffering for everyone. Also about weighting. So you give more importance to suffering, especially. So the most important thing is to eliminate strong suffering, and then to eliminate moderate suffering, then to eliminate mild suffering, and then much less important is like to create like actual feelings of like pleasure. So that is the sort of fundamental principle, and so of course then it should be done fairly. So that's sort of part of, you could say it's part of the fundamental principle, is that this should be done fairly, equitably. And then you could say there's a sort of semi-principle, a sort of less important principle, which is autonomy, freedom. So to let people do what they want if it doesn't impact other people. So that's those are the guiding ethical principles. And so then you have an actual a few actual set of rules that would be in the Constitution, and the other things would just be we'd be able to vote on. So the other this is undemocratic. You can't vote it out of existence. But everything else you can. So what are the rules within the universal society? Um, so the first rule is that there's a democracy. The democracy is mixed, representative, and direct. And so it's mostly a legislative democracy, so sort of a legislative first democracy, what you call a parliamentary democracy, except that it also has direct democracy, so people also directly get to vote on legislative questions. Um, the particularity with the system here is that there's only a universal legislative. So there's only one central legislative body, and there's no local legislative bodies. Whereas there would be local executive and judiciary bodies. Um, but the legislative, no, because laws should be the same everywhere, right? That's the only fair thing, is to have the same, right? It's totally unfair that the law would not be the same in different places. You see what I mean, right? Like it's absurd. In Singapore, you can have the death penalty for consuming cannabis, whereas it's totally legal in some places now. Um, so this is why you need one single universal legislative. Um, but then more specifically, how you choose, for instance, the representatives, you can say it can be done either through election, and so then the other thing is that like the election must be one person, one vote, and so you don't have any of these things with like electoral colleges, and like some people end up being like more important than others. You wouldn't have like regions voting; it would just be individuals voting, right? But you could, of course, have regional elections for for your judiciary, local judiciary and executive, but you wouldn't have, like, for the state, you wouldn't have counties voting, right? So you won't, if you have like 51% of people in a county voting in favor of a particular candidate, it's not like they're going to be 100% of the votes of that county going for the whole state election for that candidate, if you see what I mean, right? So you don't have that winner takes all electoral college system. Definitely wouldn't have that. Um, so that would be in the Constitution. But then you could also say you also allow sortition, which is just drawing by lot. So what you'd say is for election, anybody who is of age and mentally sane, is capable, is allowed to present itself for election. And when it comes to sortition, so drawing by lot, which is another form of choosing representatives, then you'd say just any person who has the requisite qualifications can be chosen. And so then that's up to that I leave to the people. Let's see, unlike the US Constitution, which outlines a very specific system, I don't. I give lots of latitude. Okay, I give lots of latitude. You can choose whether you elect people through election or through sortition and stuff. It's much more uh, the problem with the U.S. Constitution is that it highly constrains the freedom of how you um, you you create your political system. In fact, basically, it doesn't even allow for direct democracy. Like literally, if you wanted direct democracy, you'd probably have to just you'd have to eliminate the current U.S. Constitution, actually. And I think, yeah, absolutely, we have to get rid of the U.S. Constitution, because we have to get rid of countries anyway. So yeah. Um, then when it's yeah, so definitely, so that's the idea there. And then there's the issue, of course, is that I want to expand out into other star systems. But the problem is that if you're too far away, it just isn't feasible to have the same society and the same rules, right? Because if you have to wait like years and years before you even get a message, right? Because like even the closest star is 4 years away, right? I mean, the closest next star after our star, the sun, is 4 light years away, which means it literally takes 4 years just for information to go from here to there, which means it takes 8 years for information to go, to come back, right? To go and come back. So like literally, if you had like elections, and like literally they would only know the results. If like you had a colony on Alpha Centauri and they sent like an electromagnetic signal, like some sort of radio wave or something, to give out their their votes, but then
Well, thank you, good sir.
oh,
I like the things that you're saying so far, but I got to get going.
okay.
Just moved into my new house and I need to finish unpacking.
Okay.
You have yourself an amazing day. I heard everything up to this point. It sounds pretty legit.
Okay, well, sure. All right, well, I guess at this point I'll stop talking because I think you're the only person here so far. So yeah. All right, well, thanks, and hopefully see you around, and hope you enjoy your new house. Um, Bartos, you weren't following before? Oh, okay. All right. Oh, wait, you must have unfollowed me. Okay, so I've got a second unfollow then as a result. Okay. Um, all right. Well, I'll go back to the other stuff I was doing. All right.